right, everyone. Welcome to your very first podcast in the sixth grade in your science class. When you do these, you're always going to see a title that's going to match up with one of the boxes on the study guide. So this one, as you can see, is pencil marker comparison. So you're going to find on here information that you can use to fill out your study guide, but also information that we talked about in class as a review. So as you watch this, this is meant to be not only something to help you fill out your study guide, but also to review for what we did in class and talked about with this investigation. Make sure you always have the three things listed: your headphones, study guide, and a pencil or pen. And again, you can use this to help you fill out your study guide. So our first thing here, let's run through the parts of a notebook. First off, we have the purpose. That's going to be our question. That's what drives our investigation. Next is our prediction. And how do we write predictions in class? We either start with I predict or I think, and then we use the word because. Make sure we put our prediction or what we think in between the predict and the because and the think and the because. And then after because, we need to make sure we explain. Next up is our purpose. Then we have our data, our claims and evidence, our conclusion, which is the summary of what you learned from an experiment, and the final thing is our reflection. So this is our order that we'll always use for our notebook. Every once in a while we may skip a part, but for the most part this is exactly how we'll go through. Observing, something we're going to do many times in class, and just a simple definition is anytime you use one or more of your senses to gather information, you're going to observe. And we're going to do this in a lot of different ways. We're going to draw our observations. We want to label all those drawings because we're observing exactly what we see. Measurements, a lot of measuring, certainly here early. We're going to do some practice with our measurements, and we're going to measure in the metric system. And you're going to compare and contrast, and you're going to use a box and T-chart to do that. So as we went through in class and did that initial one here, as we did our pencil and marker, we'll do that from time to time. Remember, all the similarities always go in the box and the differences in the T-chart. When we do our drawings, there's always a couple things we want to do. We want to label the parts of the object. We want to add color, and as much as possible, and some of this depends upon your comfort level, we want to add some dimension, so maybe some shadows, just to give it a better look, more detail. And when we're done with that, our drawing will be detailed, it'll be accurate, and it will be labeled. And remember, you don't have to be an art student in order to do a good drawing in science. So we did the example of drawing the pencil in class, and just as a reminder, our lines come off from the different parts, and we want to label those with a correct term. Measuring. So here's just a quick review when we measure. This top one here across the top, as I take a look, I'm measuring in centimeters is going to be the big number, and those smaller lines all throughout are going to be the millimeters. So as I take a look at this, I have 5 right here, and I have 10 marks between each. So it's at the 9th one, so that for a centimeter is going to be 5 centimeters, and that's going to be 0.9. The smaller lines here give me a 0.9. But when I do millimeters, I'm counting every one of these lines. So this isn't 5, this is actually 50. So that makes that line actually 59. So let's do one more here. You can pause this quickly and work through this bottom example on your own and see if you get the same answers. So pause it now. Okay, so let's take a look. How did you do? What did you get for centimeters? Should have gotten 5.3 more, and 53. If you were 1 or so off, a 52 or a 54, a 5.2, 5.4, then you still did a nice job. Let's go through a box and T-chart here real quick. We always want to draw the box. Got about 4 lines in there. T-chart goes under it. We put what we're comparing on the T-chart. Everything that's the same about them goes in the box. Then all the differences go below, and make sure you kind of write a positive on one side and a negative on the other. Just some simple examples here for the difference between pencil and marker. Okay, next up, observations that deal with a number. And we talked about this in class, and I've highlighted the capital N here. Those are quantitative, N for quantitative and number. Qualitative, those are going to be labels, and we've got the L in here and the L in here. So we've misspelled this on purpose to emphasize the L there in the middle of each of them. Know what examples of data, those are going to be any facts, any evidence, and figures or numbers, of course. Inferring, that's going to be any explaining or interpreting things you observe based on reasoning from what we already know. A great picture is this picture here, and it's even entitled The Boy in the Water. If you make an observation, you should say the boy's in the water. If you start inferring, you might say he fell out of the tree, the goat pushed him into the water, he ran away from the goat into the water. Those are all inferences. The boy was playing with the boat in the water. Those are all inferences. Those are things that you already know could have taken place, but you haven't observed it happening. So that's a difference between an inference. If you just say the boy's in the water, that's an observation. If you say the goat chased the boy into the water, that's an inference. You would be inferring that because you're interpreting it. It's not something that you've seen taken place.